Welcome to the fascinating world of human behavior, where our minds often surprise us with their quirks and complexities. Did you know that we make thousands of decisions every day, many of which are influenced by unconscious biases and cognitive shortcuts? Consider this. Studies have shown that 95% of our decisions are made subconsciously. Yes, you read that right. Most of our choices are made without us even realizing it. From the products we buy to the people we befriend, our behavior is often guided by hidden forces within our minds. In this article, we'll delve into 12 mind-blowing facts about human behavior that will challenge your perceptions and expand your understanding of why we do what we do. From the surprising ways our first impressions can influence our judgments to the unconscious biases that shape our decisions, each fact will reveal a new layer of complexity to the human psyche. Get ready to explore the hidden forces that drive our behavior and discover strategies to navigate the intricacies of human interaction. Join us on this journey into the depths of the human mind, where every fact is more intriguing than the last. Let's dive in. Chapter 1: The Paradox of Choice. Have you ever felt overwhelmed by the sheer number of options available when shopping online or deciding what to watch on Netflix? You're not alone. The paradox of choice, as described by psychologist Barry Schwartz, suggests that while we might think more choices lead to greater satisfaction, the opposite is often true. When faced with too many options, we can become paralyzed by indecision, leading to less satisfaction with our final choice. Research has shown that when people are presented with a moderate number of choices, they are more likely to make a decision and feel satisfied with their choice. However, when the number of choices becomes too large, people tend to become overwhelmed and may even avoid making a decision altogether. In his book, The Paradox of Choice: Why More is Less, Schwartz explains how this phenomenon can apply to various aspects of our lives, including career decisions, relationships, and even mundane tasks like choosing a brand of jam at the grocery store. By understanding the paradox of choice, we can learn to simplify our lives and focus on what truly matters. Chapter 2: The Halo Effect. First impressions are powerful. The halo effect, a concept first introduced by psychologist Edward Thorndike, explains how our overall impression of a person can influence our perceptions of their specific traits or abilities. In other words, if we perceive someone as likable or attractive, we are more likely to assume they also possess other positive qualities, such as intelligence or kindness. This phenomenon can have significant implications in various aspects of life, from job interviews to dating. For example, studies have shown that attractive people are often perceived as more competent and trustworthy, regardless of their actual abilities. In his book, The Psychology of Interpersonal Relations, Thorndike discusses how the halo effect can lead to biased judgments and stereotypes. By being aware of this cognitive bias, we can strive to make more objective judgments about others based on their actual behavior and abilities, rather than relying solely on first impressions. Chapter 3: The Illusion of Transparency. Have you ever felt like everyone could see right through you? The illusion of transparency is a psychological phenomenon that describes our tendency to overestimate how much others can discern our internal thoughts and emotions. In reality, people are often much less perceptive of our inner state than we think. Research has shown that when people are asked to convey their emotions or thoughts to others, they often believe their inner state is more apparent than it actually is. This can lead to feelings of self-consciousness and social anxiety, as we may worry excessively about how we are perceived by others. In their book, The Invisible Gorilla: How Our Intuitions Deceive Us, psychologists Christopher Chabry and Daniel Simons discuss the illusion of transparency and its implications for communication and social interaction. By recognizing that others are not as attuned to our internal state as we might think, we can alleviate some of the pressure we feel in social situations. Chapter 4: The Proteus Effect. Did you know that the digital avatars we create in virtual environments can influence our behavior in the real world? This phenomenon, known as the Proteus effect, highlights the power of our online representations to shape our self-perception and behavior. Research conducted by Nick Yee and Jeremy Bailenson has shown that when people embody attractive or powerful avatars in virtual environments, they tend to exhibit more confident and assertive behavior in real-life interactions. Conversely, when people inhabit avatars that are less attractive or powerful, they may experience a decrease in confidence and assertiveness. In their book, Infinite Reality: Avatars, Eternal Life, New Worlds, and the Dawn of the Virtual Revolution, Yee and Bailenson explore the implications of the Proteus effect for our understanding of identity and self-perception. By recognizing how our digital avatars can influence our behavior, we can be more mindful of the virtual identities we create and their potential impact on our real lives. Chapter 5. The pratfall effect. Ever made a mistake and worried it would make others like you less? Surprisingly, the pratfall effect suggests the opposite might be true. Coined by psychologist Elliot Aronson, this effect highlights that people can actually become more likable after committing a blunder, as long as they are generally perceived as competent. Aronson's research showed that when a person of high competence makes a mistake, they become more relatable and approachable to others. This humanizes them, making them more likable compared to someone who appears flawless. In his book, The Social Animal, Aronson explains how the pratfall effect can be a valuable strategy in social situations. By showing a bit of vulnerability, such as admitting to a small mistake, we can actually enhance our likability and connect with others on a deeper level. Chapter 6. The Ben Franklin effect. Did you know that doing a favor for someone can actually make you like them more? The Ben Franklin effect, named after a quote by Benjamin Franklin, suggests that we tend to justify our actions by assuming we must like someone if we are doing something nice for them. In his autobiography, Franklin recounts a time when he turned a rival into a friend by asking to borrow a rare book from him. After the favor was granted, the rival's attitude towards Franklin changed, and they became friends. This phenomenon highlights the power of cognitive dissonance in shaping our attitudes towards others. By understanding the Ben Franklin effect, we can leverage the principle of reciprocity to build stronger relationships and connections with others. Chapter 7. The Dunning-Krueger effect. Ever met someone who thinks they know everything, only to realize they're not as knowledgeable as they claim? That's the Dunning-Krueger effect in action. Coined by psychologists David Dunning and Justin Krueger, this cognitive bias describes how people with low ability at a task tend to overestimate their ability, while those with high ability underestimate theirs. Dunning and Krueger's research showed that people who performed poorly on tests of humor, grammar, and logic were more likely to overestimate their performance. This overestimation was attributed to a lack of metacognitive skills, or the ability to accurately assess one's own performance. In their study, Dunning and Krueger suggest that one way to overcome this bias is through education and feedback. By providing people with accurate information about their performance, they can develop a more realistic understanding of their abilities. Chapter 8. The sunk cost fallacy. Have you ever continued to invest in something that wasn't working, simply because you had already invested so much time, money, or effort into it? That's the sunk cost fallacy at play. This cognitive bias describes our tendency to continue an endeavor once we've invested resources in it, even when continuing is not in our best interest. Research has shown that people are more likely to continue investing in a project or relationship if they perceive the investment as a loss that cannot be recouped. This can lead to a cycle of continued investment, even when the returns are minimal or negative. In their book, Thinking, Fast and Slow, psychologist Daniel Kahneman and economist Amos Tversky explain how the sunk cost fallacy can lead to irrational decision-making. By recognizing this bias, we can make more rational decisions and avoid wasting resources on endeavors that are unlikely to succeed. Chapter 9. The spotlight effect. Ever spilled something on your shirt and felt like everyone was staring at the stain? That's the spotlight effect in action. Coined by psychologists Thomas Gilovich and Kenneth Savitsky, this phenomenon describes our tendency to overestimate how much others notice and judge our appearance and behavior. Research has shown that people tend to believe that others are paying more attention to them than they actually are. This can lead to self-consciousness and social anxiety, as we may worry excessively about how we are perceived by others. In their study, Gilovich and Savitsky suggest that the spotlight effect is due to our egocentric bias, or the tendency to view the world from our own perspective. By recognizing that others are not as focused on us as we think, we can alleviate some of the pressure we feel in social situations. Chapter 10. The scarcity principle. Ever noticed how items seem more desirable when they're in limited supply? That's the scarcity principle at work. Coined by psychologist Robert Cialdini, this principle suggests that people are more attracted to things that are perceived as scarce or in high demand. Cialdini's research showed that when people believe something is in short supply, they are more likely to perceive it as valuable and desirable. This can lead to increased desire and a sense of urgency to obtain the item. In his book, Influence, The Psychology of Persuasion, Cialdini explains how marketers and advertisers often use the scarcity principle to influence consumer behavior. By creating a sense of scarcity around a product, they can increase its perceived value and motivate people to make a purchase. Chapter 11. The mere exposure effect. Have you ever found yourself liking a song more after hearing it multiple times? That's the mere exposure effect in action. Coined by psychologist Robert Zajonc, this phenomenon describes our tendency to develop a preference for things simply because we are familiar with them. Zajonc's research showed that repeated exposure to a stimulus, such as a song or a painting, can lead to increased liking for that stimulus. This effect can occur even if we are not consciously aware of the exposure. In his study, Zajonc suggests that the mere exposure effect is due to a preference for the familiar, as familiarity is often associated with safety and comfort. By understanding this effect, we can appreciate how our preferences can be influenced by exposure to stimuli in our environment. Chapter 12. The chameleon effect. Ever noticed yourself mimicking someone else's body language or speech patterns? That's the chameleon effect. Coined by psychologists Tanya Chartrand and John Bargh, this phenomenon describes our tendency to unconsciously mimic the behavior of others, especially in social situations. Chartrand and Bargh's research showed that people are more likely to mimic others when they are in a positive or cooperative mood. This mimicry can lead to increased rapport and empathy between individuals, as it creates a sense of similarity and connection. In their study, Chartrand and Bargh suggest that the chameleon effect is a form of nonverbal social influence, where we mimic others to create a sense of belonging and affiliation. By understanding this effect, we can become more aware of our own behavior and its impact on others.